We have a number of questions that really are kind of dealing with what is it like in heaven? What are people doing in heaven? One question: my son died in a car accident. Can he see me?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's there are questions about the present heaven and the future heaven, and they're both equally legitimate. Scripture tells us less, ironically, about the present heaven
Hmm.
than the future heaven, which is the new earth that I was talking about. But in the present heaven, we are told this in Revelation chapter 6. If you go to that passage and read it, maybe later on, or if you have an open Bible in front of you, it has martyrs who have died and they have gone to heaven, to the present heaven. This is all pre resurrection. And the martyrs are saying, "How long, O Lord, before you bring justice on those who murdered us?" Well, this tells us a bunch of things. First of all, they know God has not yet brought justice upon those martyrs, because they're not asking, "Have you yet brought justice?" They're saying, "How long before you will bring justice?" Okay, so that's important because it means they have to know what's going on down on earth to an extent. They at least know that these their killers have not yet been judged.
Hmm.
Also, they remember their lives on earth. That could be another question. Will we really remember our lives on earth? And I get these questions all the time. And that passage shows that, yes, we will.
Hmm.
I mean, at least to a certain extent. And you could say, oh, yeah, but maybe we'll remember the good things about our life on earth, but we surely won't remember the bad things. Well, they remember being murdered. I mean, that's about as bad as you can get, right? So they remember that much. But what we have to remember is that uh, heaven is not based upon ignorance. It's not ignorance that makes heaven heaven. Uh, what makes it heaven is perspective. And they will know and they will see through the eyes of perspective. So we don't have to remember anything about bad, uh, things that we did plaguing us. And to the question of, okay, if some people can see us in heaven, which we know is true at some times, based on that one thing, they could see certain things on earth, but that doesn't mean they're seeing us all the time. But some people's big question is, are they seeing me when I sin? Are they seeing me when I no, this is not, they don't become God, they don't become omnipresent. They're not your guardian angel who is with you. People and angels are two very different beings. So don't let that plague you. And certainly no one in heaven would ever be allowed to see anything if it would bring grief to them. They're in a place where there is no grief.
Hmm.
But I would say this: Charles Spurgeon has at least one, maybe a couple of great sermons on how the saints of God in heaven now, not yet resurrected, are looking forward to the resurrection and the new earth where they will live for eternity. So, one way you could think of the present heaven
Uh-huh.
in relationship to the future heaven is and it's a bad analogy in some ways because it falls so far short, is to say, okay, if let's say I was going to uh let's say I was offered I inherited a wonderful estate on Grand Cayman, all right, and this is not in my future, I'm sure, but anyway, although I'm open, but but anyway, so let's say for me, from coming from Portland, Oregon, I live in Portland, world capital weirdness, but this is where I am. Okay, so say I was flying from Portland to Grand Cayman, I'd probably fly through Houston, and Houston would be a layover. Now, I'd be there for a few hours, and let's say there were some family members who are going to join me, and they're going to go with me to my final destination in Grand Cayman, where I'm going to live. Okay, what if you ask me, where are you going? What would I answer? Well, I'd answer Grand Cayman. I might not even mention Houston.
Sure.
I mean, because I'm telling you my final destination. Now, where it falls way short is the present heaven is way better, infinitely better than the Houston airport, of course. But what I'm saying is Those who are in heaven now are not yet where heaven will ultimately be.
Hmm. Now that's a helpful analogy. That's great, and I think just what you presented tonight, just the idea of that I think many people struggle with is that there's the present heaven, but there will be this new heaven and new earth, as you mentioned at the end of Revelation, described so well.